almost got trapped in a trend, me realizing kind of like what just happened. Make it make sense. And I was like becoming so anxious that we were going to miss out on this deal. But no, that did not stop me, you guys. I went ahead and I bought it anyway. Welcome back, friends. Today I'm sharing an update on my low buy progress over the months of January and February. I'm going to be sharing details on what I purchased, what we purchased, my husband and I, as well as my thought process and some commentary on the standout purchases and some near purchases as well. Things started out strong, as any challenge typically does, and then there was a pretty big slip up in February. So get ready for me to expose all of my sad spending habits. Let's get into it. Just quickly, here is a recap of my goals for this low buy year, as well as the rules, aka the things that we are not spending as much money on or not purchasing at all this entire year. So the number one goal is for us to be able to pay off debt. We have a little bit left and we just want to get that kind of nipped in the bud this year. We also want to save more money, mostly in the categories of our emergency funds as well as travel funds. We want to reduce our overall consumption, and I would really like to reframe the way that I think about spending money and also just be more intentional about what we actually spend our money on. The rules of this low buy are no new clothes, shoes, accessories, baby clothes, baby toys, furniture, home decor, candles, skincare, makeup, and organization solutions, which, if you know me well, is a really hard one for me. We are also limiting our miscellaneous coffee expenses and small takeout like pastries and breakfast items to $30 a week. That is between the both of us together. And then we're also limiting our dining out and taking out, like ordering in food, to twice a month, which we didn't actually set like a budget for, but we'll get into that later. So now that that is all covered, let's jump right into the juicy details. So I'm not going to be sharing like the ins and outs of our budget. I'm really just going to be covering the low buy portion of our spending every month. So that includes basically non-essential spending. So for food in January, and this is outside of groceries and essential food, obviously, we spent $292.82. And then on the other categories, so this is basically non-essential items, things that we didn't really need to buy, was $325.11. Now, the majority of that non-essential spending outside of the food category was using Christmas money that we had received. So I'm not sure if it really ties into the low buy or counts towards it, because it could be considered gifts. But for the purpose of this video, I'm still going to include what we bought with that money. So I'm just going to start off by saying that so far, even just over the past 2 months, I have recognized how strongly the anticipation of getting something new takes a hold of me. That is basically just the excitement that happens inside of me when I think about acquiring something new, having something fresh in my wardrobe, or having something fresh in our home, or something that, you know, just is new, right? And I feel like I'm not the only one who feels like this. You know, consumption is way more glamorized on social media nowadays, and so it's kind of ingrained in us that having new things all the time is really great. But it's also very true, like factually, we do get dopamine hits when we acquire new things, and so we are wired to continue wanting that feeling and those material goods that bring us that feeling. So it's not necessarily the actual item that we are desiring, but more so the feelings and emotions that it invokes in us. So this is why being off of social media has been so good for my wallet. By being off of apps like Instagram and TikTok, I have honestly seen such a major difference in how much I want things and want to acquire new things. And honestly, it is slim to none because I'm not seeing all of these desirable aesthetics and lifestyles and trends constantly. And so I'm not really being brainwashed, dare I say it, into thinking that I need these things in my life. Now, this is not to say that every single person needs to, totally delete social media in order to save money. I'm not trying to say that or kind of create that blanket statement. This is just my own experience and what I'm realizing about the way that I spend my money. But I do think there is probably some relativity to this in maybe someone else's life too. So have I got a story for you? I almost got trapped in a trend, and keyword almost, so let's dive into that story. We were in Las Vegas kind of in the beginning of January, so it is included in this low buy year, and I had some Christmas money to spend, and I did not want anything on this trip. If you know Las Vegas, it's not really like a place that you do like souvenir shopping or like meaningful buying, I would say. It's more so just all over consumption every which way you turn. And so I knew like I wasn't going to be going into this trip, buying as much as I possibly could at the outlet mall. But there was one thing that I just could not get off my mind, and that was the Adidas Samba shoes. These are like the original Sambas. I'm just going to put a photo here so that you can see what I'm talking about, but I'm sure that you already know because they are spread across social media right now, and it is such a hot trend. I wanted these so badly that I even involved my other family members into looking and asking in stores if they had my size in this particular shoe. And when I actually found the shoe in a size that fit me, I was so underwhelmed, you guys. Like, I thought that I was going to put this shoe on and I was gonna feel trendy and great and cool and just like, I don't know, just as good as all of the aesthetic photos all over social media made this shoe seem to be, but it was totally the opposite. Number one, it's not that comfortable. It is a totally flat-footed shoe, so if you want any type of support for the soles of your feet, you're gonna have to go and buy additionally an insole for the shoe, which if I'm gonna be spending that much money on a shoe, I don't want to have to go out and buy something else for it, you know what I mean? And number two, when I looked in the mirror, they didn't look as great as I thought they would. I liked how they looked on other people, but not on myself. So I was kind of at a crossroads. It felt a little bit like a dilemma, and I turned my head in this particular store and I saw this other sneaker that I hadn't really seen before in this particular burgundy colorway, and I was like, whoa, those are really cool. Like, I feel like I would really like to wear those. And also from past experience, I know that New Balance has great insoles and they're actually comfortable. So I tried that shoe on and immediately I fell in love with them. Like, I really, really appreciated the shoe for the appearance and the feeling. So then I had two of these sneakers in my hands and it took me close to like 30 minutes to decide which one I wanted to buy. I didn't want to get both of them. I knew that was not the situation that was going to be happening. And in the end, I ended up going for the New Balance. But the moral of the story here is that social media, I realize, has influenced me in so many ways to buy stuff that I don't actually necessarily like for myself, And I'm going to use the word brainwashing because seeing these things repetitively all the time convinces us that we need these items in our lives, even if they are not in alignment with our own personal preferences. So being off social media has certainly helped me gain clarity on what my preferences and tastes actually are versus just following the crowd all the time. When I think back on this experience and just kind of that scenario when I was reflecting to create this video, I honestly realized that it wasn't necessarily the shoe that I desired so badly. It was that feeling of having something that everybody else had, and it was that desire to like fit in and be a part of something bigger. And I think a lot of the time that's what we're wanting when we follow these trends. And so that's been a really great aha moment for me, I guess, during this low buy so far. Now, the other things that we purchased with some Christmas money was a dress for Ella. So, you know, just something fun to get on our vacation. It's this adorable little tennis dress that she's gonna wear in the summer, and I'm super excited. It was also $12 because we were at the outlet. I'm not saying that justifies the purchase, but it didn't cost us an arm and a leg to purchase. So that was one. And then the other thing that I got was a sewing kit. And for this, it was something I had to buy because I had received a sewing kit for Christmas, and so I obviously needed thread and the tools to actually do sewing projects. And I was trying to decide whether I wanted to buy a smaller, more minimal kit with less stuff in it, or a more expensive, higher quality kit that had more than I necessarily needed in that very moment. I did end up spending a bit more money to get the full kit with like the dozen different colored threads, and I'm happy that I did because I know down the road it's going to prevent me from having to go out and purchase different colored threads every time I'm doing a new sewing project. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that one. I think it came in around like $80 or so, and like I said, I used the Christmas money as well. Now, there was a moment during this month where I almost bought something simply because it was on sale. I specifically said in my low buy rules that I didn't want to buy any furniture, and the exception would be something secondhand if we decided to kind of redo Ella's nursery. And we did kind of rearrange the room, and so I had found this side table a few months ago, and I didn't purchase it because it was like, I think it was almost $100, and I also knew like I didn't need it in that exact moment. It was just something I saw and really liked how it might have looked in the room, and I saw that it was like 50% off, and then it went down to like 75% off. So instead of $100, it was then $25. And I was like, oh, like I need to get this. I put it in my cart, but I did not check out because I remembered my low buy rules, and I was like, it's gonna hurt, you know, after the fact of buying this, knowing that I don't know, kind of went back on my word. So that was definitely a near purchase that I successfully did not go through with. Now, when it came to food in this month, I would say compared to previous months where we didn't really have a budget for takeout and coffees, things like that, we were definitely better and more controlled in our spending. So that $30 allotment really did work out for us well. The only thing that happened during this month was an unexpected, or more so unplanned, celebration of a friend's birthday, which ended up in a more costly like dining out meal, which isn't something that we would say no to. It was actually JR that went to this dinner, but that was like an expense that increased how much we spent during the month. And I think it was okay. Like, it wasn't a crazy amount of money that we spent. However, if it was planned for, it would have given us a better idea of how much to, I guess, set aside during the month for that category. Okay, I'm really sorry. That previous clip, I completely forgot to turn my microphone back on, so I apologize for the shock to your ears, but we're back to regularly scheduled programming here. So let's move on to the month of February. This was the month that things got a little bit slippery. So we spent a total of $287.67 on non-essential food. And then we spent, wait for it, $1,112.80 in the non-essential spending category. So we have something to talk about here. There was a big purchase, and it needs to be addressed. And I've also got some commentary after the fact of me realizing kind of like what just happened. So a couple of things were different this month. Number one was a little bit of an increase in disposable income. Number two was that I had taken on a kitchen organization project, which I will link up here if you want to watch it. And number three, there were just some inconveniences that popped up throughout the month. And you know me, I love to fix things. So yeah, we addressed those inconveniences. The biggest purchase of February was our brand new espresso machine. And that came in at about $896. So yeah, you're probably thinking, wow, Haley, in your second month of the low buy year, you bought something that expensive? Like how does this make sense? Make it make sense. And yeah, so let's chat about it. I have a story about this, and I kind of reflected on the entire experience of buying this item, because I feel like for the average person, that's like a really massive purchase, at least for us. Like, we don't go out and buy hundreds of dollars of things every month, not even every other month. So it was a pretty big expense for us. And yeah, I probably shouldn't have bought it this early on in the year, but we'll talk about that. So we had this old coffee machine, it's a Keurig, and it was starting to have some issues. And so that, in tandem with some increase in income that we had and some money to spend, we were like, let's get a coffee machine. Let's get the coffee machine that we've had on our wish list for over a year and a half. So the hunt began. I started looking at machines and what was the best one to get. I was looking at reviews. I was just in like this frenzy of finding the best option for us. And JR gave me the go ahead to choose the one that I thought was best. Obviously, we kind of like talk about these things. And so I found one and we agreed, okay, this would be really great to have. And then I went on the hunt for the best price. So I was on Google shopping page or whatever, and it said price drop. And there was a price of $1,000 crossed out, and it was now $799. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the moment. This is when we get our coffee machine, and even better, on sale. So I went to the website and I was like, okay, we're gonna purchase this right now. It's on sale. I can't believe it. And I couldn't check out. Like, I literally could not get the item into my cart. It wouldn't let me. And every time I tried to, it did not work. Trust me, I tried many times. And this was past business hours. It was past customer service hours. So then I was just basically waiting, and I was like becoming so anxious that we were going to miss out on this deal. And I think this was kind of like a smaller scale version of what is happening with the Stanley Cup madness. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google it. There have been people running other people over in the store to get a limited edition Stanley. But that same like mental process, I feel, was kind of what I was going through, you know what I mean? And I don't think this is out of the ordinary. Like, I think this is just something that has been normalized. Like, if something is on sale, like, we have to get it, or else it's going to sell out and we're going to miss out and our lives will be destroyed. That's a little bit extreme, but it's kind of like where my mind went at this time, you know? So I went to the store the next morning. I packed up my baby. We went to the store right for the opening hour, and they had it in stock. I was so happy. But guess what the person who was helping me out said? They were like, oh yeah, but this isn't on sale. This is the regular price. And in this moment, it did cross my mind, Haley, what are you doing? Like, why are you about to buy this? It's not even on sale. But no, that did not stop me, you guys. I went ahead and I bought it anyway. So we now have a new espresso machine in our kitchen, but I think the whole moral of the story in this part of the story is that we definitely don't need to get so worked up about material things like this, and I don't need these things in my life for, you know, lasting satisfaction. But immediately when I brought that machine home, I soon realized that it was going to require a lot of effort, time, and energy to actually maintain the purchase. Number one, in setting it up. Number two, in learning how to use it. And number three, in the much longer process that it was going to take to make a single beverage in the morning. And, you know, when I was in that, you know, frantic buying headspace, I wasn't considering these things. So it's interesting thinking back on that and just kind of realizing these things now, I guess. I think this is a great learning experience for me, especially so early on in the low buy year, because now I can recognize some of the signs of when I want something really bad, and even if it is on my wish list, just kind of the fact that I need to take a step back and take a breather before I go and buy something. So moving on from that story, you got the whole juicy, dirty details of that one. I also spent a fair bit of money at IKEA. IKEA, it always gets me every single time. I even knew this walking into the store, but there were some things that I needed to address. Number one was a new drying rack for our dishes. It wasn't super expensive, but it did address a concern that we had, and that was that the pads we had previously were so moist that they were attracting ants overnight. So that was just something that needed to go. We do live in an older building, and so in the winter, the ants, they come inside. So we had to get something that was going to remove that moisture and pretty much remove that ant situation, and it worked, so really thankful for that. But I also purchased a lemon juice squeezer thing. It was like $2, I think, and I probably didn't need to buy that, but it's a nice to have. So I'm not super upset because I have also been using it to create pure orange juice, which has been really nice. I also bought one tall glass jar for the pastas. This was to complete the round lazy Susan that I had in my one of my kitchen cupboards. So I definitely didn't need to get that right then and there, but I was at the store and I was like, okay, I've got 3 of these, what's another one? And it was also super cheap, so not hard for me to decide to buy it, but again, nice to have. Probably could have kept my pasta in a bag that was already, packaged with, but I got the jar, and so that's said and done. I also did get us room darkening curtains because sometimes for JR's work schedule, he has to sleep during the day, and the curtains that we previously had let all of the light in, and I mean all of it. So the room darkening curtains are also nice to have. But you know what I realized? We have sleeping masks, and he was using them before and it was totally fine. So this was definitely just me trying to fix something. But yeah, I even shortened the curtains, so there's no returning, there's no going back, and now they are in our room, and they are nice to have. It's really great to have a darker room to sleep in, but probably didn't need to buy them. Couple of other things that we got to address some home needs was a strainer for our kitchen sink, as well as some dryer balls for the dryer. So just not fun items that make our lives a little easier and just improve the function of our day-to-day. Now, here are a few purchases that I got on Amazon, and I don't regret any of these because they did fulfill needs. Number one was a cookbook stand. I have been using our cookbooks more frequently, every single week, now that I have them in a more reasonable area to actually grab and use. So I was using them and I was like, okay, this is not working out. I have no weight to actually keep the book open and make it easy for me to see when I'm cooking. So I did get that. Super happy with the purchase though, and I've been using it almost every day. And then I also got Ella a new plate to fit on her high chair tray, and it came with a little cup and learner fork and spoon. So again, that one was fulfilling a need. It's great because she is eating more solids now. I also purchased these food pouch toppers that prevent messes and her being able to squeeze out the puree from the pouch. So that came in a pack of 2, and I thought that was a reasonable amount versus a pack of 6 that I was seeing on Amazon. That just really, I feel like that's just totally unnecessary, and those have been used on the daily as well. So super happy with those purchases, and yeah, no regrets. There was an unexpected expense that popped up in February, and that was just replacing some of our car brake lights. And so I got some light bulbs at Canadian Tire, and while I was there, I did pick up a garbage can for the car, just because the garbage in our car was being gathered in the sides of our doors, and I was over feeling like a slob. But I feel like that purchase definitely fulfills a purpose, and so I'm happy with it. I also value order, so that obviously makes sense, and it is a purchase that actually benefits me. Now, when it came to food during this month, we did splurge a little bit more. As I'm looking back, I think the prices that we spent, or the cost of food in February and January, was very similar. So I'm not, upset with how much we spent. It's just that I think we didn't account for the date night that we went on, which was a little bit more than we typically would spend. But overall, I feel like we didn't spend a crazy amount, and it definitely helped that we were kind of checking in with one another before we would order takeout or before we would pick a place to eat at. So those are the recaps of January and February's spending, as well as some of my thought processes for those purchases and near purchases. Something that I would really like to do better moving forward in this low buy is to put any extra income that we have during any said month towards debt or savings versus purchasing stuff on our wish list. Maybe we just won't buy anything off of the wish list until all of that debt is paid off and we have a substantial amount that we have added to our savings accounts. I don't know, I'm gonna have to do a little bit more thought on that, but that's just kind of where my head is at right now. And then there are some changes that I want to make moving forward in terms of how I am planning how much we're spending. So the number one thing is accounting for extraordinary expenses during the upcoming month. So for example, birthdays, special occasions. I really want to set a budget for these things before they happen to just give ourselves like a limit, and so that we know what to expect. I think we didn't really do this in January and February, so it just created the opportunity for a lot of open-ended spending, which is fine in some cases, but I feel like for a low buy year, we're really trying to be intentional, and so planning for them is a better way to go about things. The second thing that I want to do a little bit differently is allot an ideal spending amount for our takeout and dining out occasions. We didn't do this, like I said, for January and February, but I do see how setting an ideal amount, for example, $150 split amongst 2 dining out sessions, so that we don't overspend, and so that we're just a little bit more aware when we're picking things off of the menu and maybe ordering more than we necessarily need at any meal. And then lastly, I am also setting up a weekly day so that I can check in with my low buy and record the progress and expenses that I've had throughout that week. I was doing really well in January with this, but then I feel like in February I just kind of like fell off, and so I would have 2 weeks at a time where I was like trying to go back and see what we spent, and it just makes the whole task really tedious and annoying. So I want to be more on top of keeping track on a more regular basis. I've also kind of switched up the way that I am outlining my notes where I do keep track of our purchases, because what I did previously worked, but I feel like there were a few gaps that I wanted to fill. So that's what I've got here. If you're also doing a low buy, maybe you'll want to try that out as well. But I'm also curious to know if you guys have any tips on tracking your low buy progress too. Like, are you doing anything differently? I'd love to know, so comment down below. So even though it has only been 2 months in this low buy year, I can definitely feel that there is a strong possibility that this whole way of living is going to become a permanent thing once the low buy year is over, because the alternative of overconsumption just doesn't entice me anymore. Maybe that's just a result of where I'm at in my life as a wife and a new mom, but honestly, I feel now that more options and more stuff just makes life harder. As a homemaker, a part of my role in tandem with my husband, of course, is to manage our finances responsibly. So from, the meals that we plan, to the things we put on our grocery list, to the things that we acquire to improve our home, and also the possessions that we acquire for our daughter. I think that the whole concept of a low buy, of, buying less but better, of saving more and spending more intentionally, is so reasonably sustainable. So I'm really looking forward to where else this low buy year is going to take me in, reframing the way that I think about spending, and also just changing the way that I buy things as well. And I would love to know, if you're also doing a low buy or maybe even a no buy, how your year is going so far too. Leave a comment down below and we can chat about it. As always, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it relatable, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one.